This is why you should never knock on a stranger's door. Once there was a man trying to check into a hotel. The woman at the front desk gave him his key and told him none of the guests are allowed to go into the room across the hall. He agreed, but as he continued to stay in the hotel, he grew more and more curious about the room he wasn't supposed to go in. At one point, he even walked down the hall to that room and tried the door. It was locked. Then he bent down and looked through the keyhole. He saw that it was just the same as his hotel room. But in the corner of the room, there was a woman whose skin was extremely pale, almost a sickly white. Her back was to the wall, so the man didn't see what she looked like. He almost knocked on the door, but then just decided to leave her alone. The next day, he walked past the door again and decided to look into the keyhole. This time, there was no hotel room and no woman. It was all just red. He thought that this seemed really strange, so he went to the front desk and asked about the room. After insisting on an answer, the woman at the front desk told him, "A long time ago, a man killed his wife in that room, and her ghost is still there. But these ghosts are not what you might imagine. They're completely white all over, except for their eyes, which are red."
This is the time my mom faked her death so she didn't have to take care of me and my siblings. Yes, this girl really faked her death. So at the time, I was 5 and my little brother was 3. It started off with my mom saying that she didn't feel well and she couldn't pick me up from school, so the bus would have to take me home. Well, a few months after, she started getting picked up from our house by this black car. She said that car was picking her up because of her so-called doctor's appointments. And she wasn't able to drive herself because she was too sick. Well, one day, when this car came to pick her up, she never came home. Me and my little brother were sitting around for a couple days waiting for her to come home, but she never came home. And we were young, so we didn't do anything. Eventually, my aunt came over to our house and told my little brother and I that our mom had passed away and that she was cremated and they kept the ashes. So our aunt started taking care of us. Until one day I saw my aunt getting picked up by that same black car. That's when I started to get suspicious of everything and I decided to check these ashes. When I checked, it was flour. Like for part 2. This is part 2 of the time my mom faked her death so she didn't have to take care of me and my siblings. Like I said, my aunt told me that my mom had died and they cremated her and they let her keep the ashes and that she was going to start taking care of us. Me not knowing how long the cremating process actually took at the time since I was so young, I believed her. Until one day I saw my aunt getting picked up by the same black car that my mom used to get picked up by before she died. That's when I decided to check these supposed ashes and it was actually flour. So one day when my aunt got picked up by this black car, I decided to follow her. I didn't have a car, I was 5 years old, so I had to follow them by walking and hiding behind bushes. I was able to follow them up the street, and once they turned the corner, and there I saw my mom standing on the side of the street. That's when I see the car stop and I see my aunt get out and approach my mother. She tells my mom to give her money for covering for her and taking care of me and my little brother. Mom says she faked her death because my dad wasn't in our lives and she didn't want to take care of us anymore. I'm older now and I cut her off completely and I have full custody of my little brother.
Story time of how we almost got kidnapped. So me and my best mate were having some cocktails by the river. It was summertime and time was flying by and it began to get dark. Bear in mind that the river to the main roads were like a 20-minute walk, so we were far from anyone and anything. The river was also quite hidden, so we agreed to go back before it started getting dark. It was a little scary. We had to go through the woods, and by the time we'd got onto this little motorway bridge, it was literally pitch black. And we still had so far to go. So we carried on walking. There was woods either side of us, and my friend legit made us stop because she had saw some bats, and I don't know why she thought they would stay there, but we ended up standing there for about 2 minutes. Dead ass, no joke, we were standing there and heard a whistle from the trees next to us. And when I tell you, we have never ran so far and so fast in our lives. It was horrifying. We still had to go over another little bridge. We had to go through train tracks and cow fields. We got over this river bridge and legit was running for our lives. My friend looked back and this guy was about 2 feet away from us. I'm running out of time, so like part 2. Story time, we almost got kidnapped part 2. So like I was saying, my friend looked back and this guy was about 2 meters away from us. We had got over the little bridge, but we still had to go over the train tracks, through the cow fields and all of that stuff. We were like halfway through the cow fields. We had dropped our bottles and just carried on running. Then we had to go through the train tracks. Bear in mind, you have to open these gates to get through them, so that would just be holding back time. It was absolutely horrifying, but the guy must have stopped running because when we looked back, he wasn't there. But we continued running because we still had so far to go and we had to walk home, which made it even worse. I guess it was our fault because we went back when it was dark, but we were just wondering what his plan was to do because he was just there by himself in the dark and in the woods. It's like, what was his plans? But anyways, the next day we decided to come back. I have no idea why we decided to come back, but we did. It was in the middle of the day and our straws and our bottles were literally laying there on the ground. It was so weird to see because we had dropped them the night before, but they were completely full and unopened. So when we dropped the bottles, that's when he must have stopped running for us.
This is why you should always pay attention to detail.